When blood turns against blood, the wounds never truly heal, especially when a child suffers the consequences. "Grandma, am I allowed to have dinner tonight?" Those 7 words shattered my world into 1,000 jagged pieces. My 7-year-old grandson Malik stood there in my kitchen, his little shoulders hunched, those big brown eyes looking up at me with uncertainty that no child should ever feel. His tiny fingers twisted the hem of his too small t-shirt, waiting for permission to satisfy his most basic need, food. He was asking permission to eat. I froze, dish towel in hand, water from the faucet still running. The dinner I'd prepared, nothing fancy, just meatloaf, green beans, and mashed potatoes, sat cooling on the counter. "What do you mean, baby? Of course you can eat. You don't ever need permission for that in Grandma's house." His face brightened for a moment, then fell again as his eyes darted toward the hallway where his mother's bedroom door remained closed. "But Mama said I was bad today, and bad boys don't get dinner." I want to pause here for just a moment. If you're watching this right now, I need to know where you're listening from. Drop your location in the comments below, because what I'm about to share might be happening right in your own neighborhood. I believe these stories travel exactly where they need to go, to the hearts that need to hear them most. My name is Loretta Jean Harris. I'm 66 years old, born and raised in Birmingham, but Atlanta's been my home for 40 years. After working as a school librarian for 4 decades, I thought I'd seen it all. Children from broken homes, children with empty lunchboxes, children with bruises they couldn't explain. But nothing prepared me for seeing my own flesh and blood, my precious grandson, asking if he could eat. That night, I sat Malik down at the table and filled his plate high. I watched him eat like it might be his last meal. Quickly, almost frantically, his eyes constantly checking the hallway. When he finished, he tried to hide 2 dinner rolls in his pocket. "What are you doing, baby?" I asked him. He looked down. "Saving them for tomorrow, in case I'm bad again." Would you have known what to say in that moment? Would the right words have come to you? They didn't come to me. All I could do was pull him into my arms and hold him while my heart cracked open. You see, my daughter Shonda had moved back in with me 6 months ago after losing her apartment. She claimed she was working night shifts at the hospital, leaving Malik in my care most evenings. I was happy to help. After losing my Clarence 8 years ago, the house felt too quiet, too empty. Having my grandson around brought life back into these old walls. But something wasn't right. I'd noticed Malik getting thinner. His clothes hung loose where they once fit snug. When I mentioned it to Shonda, she'd snap at me. "He's just growing, Mama. Kids shoot up and slim down. Stop trying to fatten him up like a Christmas turkey." That night, after Malik went to bed, I sat alone at my kitchen table with a cup of tea gone cold, replaying all the warning signs I'd missed. The way he'd watch me cook with hungry eyes, how he'd ask if there would be breakfast tomorrow. The time I found him eating crackers he'd hidden under his mattress. What kind of grandmother misses signs like these? What kind of mother raises a child who would deny her own son food? If you're a parent or grandparent watching this, I have a question that keeps me up at night. How far would you go to protect the child when the danger comes from someone you love? Tell me in the comments what you would have done, because what happened next tested every belief I had about family, loyalty, and the lengths a grandmother will go to keep her grandson safe. The next morning, I woke early and made a proper breakfast. Eggs, grits, bacon, and biscuits with gravy. The smell filled the house, and Malik appeared in the kitchen doorway, his hair tousled from sleep, hesitating. "Come eat, baby," I said cheerfully. He glanced behind him. "Is Mama awake?" "Not yet, but that doesn't matter. Breakfast is ready now." He climbed onto the chair and I placed a full plate in front of him. That's when I heard Shonda's bedroom door open. Malik's fork clattered to the plate. His eyes widened with fear. And that's when I knew this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This wasn't a child being dramatic. This was something much worse. I stood up, positioning myself between my grandson and the hallway, ready for what would come next.
Shonda appeared in the doorway, her eyes narrowing at the breakfast spread. "Malik already ate dinner last night," she said coldly. "He doesn't need all this food. You're spoiling him." I felt my jaw tighten. "Good morning to you too, Shonda. There's plenty for everyone." "He needs to learn discipline, Mama. You can't just feed him whenever he wants." She grabbed her purse from the counter. "I'm heading out. Got errands to run." The front door slammed, leaving Malik and me in a silence that spoke volumes. "Eat your breakfast, baby," I said softly. "Eat as much as you want." If you're still with me, I want you to think about your own family for a moment. Have you ever witnessed something that made you question everything you thought you knew about someone you love? Type yes in the comments if you've ever had to face an uncomfortable truth about family. Your response helps me know I'm not alone in this journey. My relationship with Shonda wasn't always this way. Lord knows I tried my best raising her alone after her daddy left when she was just 4 years old. I worked double shifts at the library, picked up weekend work cleaning houses, anything to make sure she had what she needed. Maybe that was my first mistake, confusing needs with wants. Shonda grew up pretty and smart, but there was always something missing in her. Empathy, perhaps. As a teenager, she'd manipulate situations to get her way. Small lies became bigger ones. When she got pregnant with Malik at 32, I thought motherhood might change her. For a while, it seemed to. She doted on that baby boy. Then things changed. She lost jobs, burned bridges, cycled through relationships that left her more bitter each time. When she moved back in with me, I noticed how short-tempered she was with Malik, how he would flinch when she raised her voice. The week after the breakfast incident, I started paying closer attention. I noticed Malik had a routine. He'd check the kitchen when Shonda wasn't looking, counting food items in the pantry, opening the refrigerator just to stare inside before quickly shutting it. One afternoon, I found him in the bathroom, drinking water straight from the faucet, gulping it down like he was filling up on something, anything. "Baby, are you thirsty? I can get you some juice," I offered. He jumped, startled. "I'm just taking the edge off my hunger, Grandma. That's what Mama says to do when there's no food time." No food time. The phrase chilled me to my core. "What's no food time, Malik?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the fury building inside me. "When I've been bad, or when Mama says we need to save money, sometimes it's just one meal, but sometimes it's a whole day." He said this so matter-of-factly, like it was normal, like all children had no food times. What would you do if you heard those words from a child you love? Would you confront the parent immediately or gather more evidence first? This question haunted me for days afterward. That evening, I called my friend Phyllis, who still worked at the elementary school where I used to be the librarian. Without naming names, I asked if she'd ever encountered children being denied food as punishment. "That's neglect, Loretta," she said firmly. "If you suspect that's happening to a child, you need to report it." "Even if it's family?" My voice cracked. There was a long pause. "Especially if it's family. Those children have no one else to advocate for them." After we hung up, I sat on my front porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that seemed too beautiful for the ugliness I was uncovering. I decided I needed to confront Shonda directly. My opportunity came the next day. Malik was napping, exhausted from not sleeping well the night before. Shonda was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. "We need to talk about Malik," I said, sitting across from her. She didn't look up. "What about him?" "I'm asking why my grandson thinks there are days when he's not allowed to eat." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He's being dramatic. Kids do that for attention." "This isn't attention seeking. This is fear." "You always think you know better, don't you?" She stood up, chair scraping against the floor. "I raised me to be soft, and look where that got me. Single mom living with my mother at 39. Malik needs to be stronger than I was." "Starving a child doesn't make them strong. It breaks them." Her face hardened. "I don't have to listen to this. I'm his mother, not you." She stormed out, leaving me trembling with anger and fear. That night, while searching for a spare blanket in Shonda's closet, I found something that made my blood run cold. A shoebox, pushed to the back corner, filled with cash, hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars in neatly stacked bills. Where was this money coming from, and if she had all this, why was she telling Malik they needed to save money by skipping meals? I closed the closet door quietly, my heart pounding. Something was very wrong in my house, and for the first time, I wondered if food was just the beginning of what Malik was being denied. As I turned to leave, something else caught my eye. A receipt that had fallen on the floor. It wasn't for groceries or bills or anything a mother with a young child might need. It was a money transfer, a large one, and the date matched exactly with the last time Malik had gone a full day without eating. That receipt haunted me all week. I decided to make a Sunday dinner, the works. Fried chicken, collard greens with ham hocks, macaroni and cheese, sweet potato pie. Foods that reminded me of better times, when family meant safety, not secrets. I invited Pastor Thomas and his wife from church to join us, partly for company and partly because I wanted witnesses to how Shonda acted around Malik and food. Sometimes the truth needs an audience to be believed. If you've ever set a trap with love is the bait, put a heart in the comments. Sometimes we have to create situations that force the truth into the light. The table looked beautiful that Sunday afternoon. Sunlight streamed through the lace curtains my mother had made decades ago. Pastor Thomas said grace, his deep voice filling my dining room with warmth and blessing. Then we started passing dishes around. Malik's eyes were wide as saucers. He took small portions of everything, though I could see how his hand trembled with restraint. "Take more, sweetheart," said Mrs. Thomas. "Your grandmother's macaroni and cheese is famous in 3 counties. Before Malik could reach for the serving spoon again, Shonda's hand shot out, gripping his wrist. "He has enough," she said with a tight smile. "We're watching his weight." Pastor Thomas looked up, fork paused midway to his mouth. "The boy looks like he could use some meat on his bones, if you don't mind me saying so." Shonda's laugh was brittle. "All mothers think their kids need more food. It's just how we are." Mrs. Thomas glanced at me, eyebrow raised. I gave her a small nod. "Malik, why don't you show Pastor Thomas your science project while I serve dessert?" Once they left the room, I faced my daughter. "You're not watching his weight, Shonda. You're controlling his food, and I want to know why." Her face hardened. "Not this again, Mama. You're seeing problems where there aren't any." "The money in your closet. Where's it coming from? Because it sure isn't from night shifts at any hospital." Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second, just long enough for me to know I'd struck a nerve. "You went through my things?" She leaned forward with voice low as anger. "That's my private property. This is my house, and I'll go through anything I please when I suspect my grandson is being neglected under my own roof." Shonda stood up fast, her chair tipped backward, crashing to the floor. You don't know anything. You're just a bitter old woman who can't mind her own business. Malik is my business. He is my son, she hissed, not yours. You had your chance at motherhood, and look how that turned out. Her words stung like a slap, but I held my ground. If you're not working night shifts, where are you going? That's none of your concern. It is when you come home at 3 in the morning smelling like alcohol and men's cologne. Pastor Thomas cleared his throat from the doorway. Malik stood beside him, clutching his science project, eyes wide with fear. We should be going, the pastor said quietly. Loretta, call me if you need anything. The emphasis on anything wasn't lost on me. After they left, Shonda grabbed her purse. I'm going out. You have a shift tonight, I asked pointedly. She glared at me. Yes, at the hospital, where I work, with sick people who need me. The lie hung between us like smoke. Malik, come give Mama a kiss goodbye, she called. Malik walked to her slowly, his lower body rigid with tension. She bent down, whispering something in his ear that made his face drain of color. Then she was gone, the door slamming behind her. What did she say to you, baby? I asked once we were alone. Malik's lower lip trembled. He said, if you tell you any more stories, we'll have to move away where you can't find us. My heart felt like it stopped beating. Stories? What stories, Malik? He looked down at his shoes. About the food? About the man who gives Mama money? About the needles. Needles. What would you do if your grandchild suddenly revealed something so alarming? Would you push for more information immediately, or would you tread carefully to avoid frightening them? This decision can change everything. I knelt down, trying to keep my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. What needles, Malik? It's important that you tell Grandma the truth. His answer shattered what little hope I had left that this situation wasn't as bad as I feared. Sometimes Mama has friends over when you're asleep, Malik whispered. They use needles in their arms, and then they laugh a lot or fall asleep. Mama told me if I ever told anyone, bad men would take me away forever. In that moment, standing in my Sunday best with my grandson's terrified confession hanging in the air, I knew I needed to be strategic. This wasn't just about missed meals anymore. Before I continue, I want to ask those of you watching this from homes where children are safe and loved, can you imagine discovering that darkness lived not just in your home, but in someone whose heart once beat beneath your own? Drop a prayer in the comments if you're grateful for your family's safety tonight. That evening, after putting Malik to bed with a full stomach and extra hugs, I dug out an old composition book from my librarian days. On the first page, I wrote evidence and the date. Then I documented everything I could remember. Every time Malik had asked permission to eat, every time Shonda had restricted his food, every strange behavior I'd noticed. I wrote down his weight too, 42 pounds. Far too little for a 7-year-old boy. I planned to weigh him weekly, documenting with photos. The next morning, instead of just dropping Malik off at school, I asked to speak with his teacher, Miss Rodriguez. I've been concerned about Malik, she said, before I could even explain why I was there. He's been falling asleep in class, hoarding food from the cafeteria. Last week I found sandwich crusts and apple cores in his desk. My throat tightened. Has he said anything to you? She hesitated. Children often tell partial truths, Mrs. Harris. Malik mentioned that sometimes there isn't food at home because his mother is saving for something important. There's plenty of food in my home. I make sure of it. Miss Rodriguez's expression softened. I believe you, but something isn't right. Yesterday during lunch, he asked if he could take food home for his no food days. I closed my eyes briefly, steadying myself. I'm handling it, but I'd appreciate if you document anything else he says or does that seems unusual. Of course. She touched my arm gently. Mrs. Harris, if this is what I think it is, you'll need more than just notes. You'll need proof. Proof. Such a simple word for such a heavy burden. For the next week, I became a detective in my own home. I photographed the contents of my refrigerator before and after Shonda had access to it. I noticed food disappearing, not being eaten, but simply gone, whenever she was home alone. I checked Malik's backpack daily, finding hidden crackers and fruit cups he'd taken from school. Each discovery was another knife in my heart. During this time, Shonda grew increasingly erratic. Some nights she didn't come home at all. Other nights she returned with eyes glassy, movements jerky, temper razor sharp. She'd sleep for 14 hours straight, then be up for 2 days. I began checking her room when she was out. The cash box grew fatter some days, emptier on others. I found more receipts for money transfers, and hidden at the back of her bottom drawer, wrapped in a scarf, I discovered what I'd been dreading: a syringe, a bent spoon, and a small plastic baggie with residue I couldn't identify but knew wasn't sugar. Have you ever stood at a crossroads where every path forward would change lives forever? Where one decision could save a child but destroy your relationship with your own daughter? Tell me in the comments, what would you have chosen? One Tuesday afternoon, Malik came home from school with a note. His teacher had weighed all the students as part of a health unit. Malik had lost 3 pounds in a month, while most children his age were gaining. That night, I made spaghetti and meatballs, Malik's favorite. When Shonda came home, I steeled myself for confrontation. We need to talk about Malik's weight, I said, showing her the note. She barely glanced at it. Kids go through growth spurts. He's fine. He's not fine. He's hungry and scared, Shonda, and I found things in your room. You stay out of my room. What I do is my business. Malik appeared in the doorway, trembling. Shonda's face instantly transformed, a smile replacing the snarl. Go play in your room, baby. Mama and Grandma just having a grown-up talk. After he left, her smile vanished. You want to take him away from me, don't you? My own mother trying to steal my son? I want him safe and fed, I said quietly. That's all I've ever wanted for both of you. She laughed bitterly. Sure, Mama, sure. She grabbed her purse. I'm going out. Don't wait up. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard the front door open. Shonda's voice carried down the hallway as she talked on her phone. Yeah, I got it. No, my mother doesn't suspect anything. I told you we'll be out of here soon. Just need to make a few more runs. The kid, he's fine. Stops complaining when I remind him what happens to bad boys who tell tales. I crept closer to her room, straining to hear more. Tomorrow night? Yeah, I can do that. Big shipment, huh? How much we talking? That's more than usual. Yeah, I know it's risky. That's why I want more money. My heart pounded so loudly I was afraid she'd hear it through the door. Don't worry about my mother. Old lady minds her business when it counts. Yeah, Kendrick, I'm sure. No, Malik won't say anything. He knows better. I froze at the mention of my grandson's name. Whatever business Shonda was involved in, she was using her own child's hunger and fear to protect it.
I returned to my room and added this conversation to my evidence journal, hands shaking so badly I could barely write. Then I made a decision that would change our lives forever. I reached for my phone and dialed a number I'd saved days ago, but hoped I'd never have to use. As it rang, I prayed for forgiveness for what I was about to do to my only child.
Yes, Child Protective Services. My name is Loretta Harris. I need to report a case of child neglect. I hung up the phone before completing the call. Not yet. I needed more proof. More than just my word against hers. More than notes in a composition book that any defense attorney would dismiss as the ramblings of a worried grandmother. I needed to know exactly what Shonda was involved in. Before we go further into what happens next, I want you to understand something important. When I considered reporting my own daughter, it felt like tearing out my own heart. Have you ever had to choose between two impossible options, between family loyalty and doing what's right? Comment impossible choice below if you've faced your own version of this heartbreaking dilemma. The next evening, Shonda dressed with unusual care, tight jeans, low-cut top, leather jacket I'd never seen before. She applied makeup in the bathroom mirror, sprayed perfume in the air, and walked through it. "Going to work?" I asked casually as she grabbed her purse. "Yeah, don't wait up." She barely glanced my way. "The hospital must be busy these days, all these night shifts." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "It's flu season." 20 minutes after she left, I put my plan in motion. My neighbor, Gloria, came over to watch Malik. I told her I had a church emergency meeting. Then I got into my 10-year-old Buick and followed the route I'd seen Shonda take before. The night was cool for Atlanta, the streets glistening from an earlier rain. I kept several cars between us, thankful for the defensive driving course I'd taken years ago. My heart hammered against my ribs as I followed her to the rougher side of town, past boarded-up storefronts and vacant lots strewn with trash. Shonda parked outside a rundown apartment building with bars on the windows. I drove past, circling back to park a block away, where I could still see her car but wouldn't be noticed. Then I waited. The digital clock on my dashboard read 8:42 p.m. when Shonda emerged with a tall man, his arm draped possessively around her shoulders, fingers playing with her hair. Even from a distance, I could see the tattoos creeping up his neck like vines. They got into his car, a sleek black vehicle that cost more than I'd made in years of library work. I followed again, staying further back this time. They drove to a motel with the flickering neon sign, the kind that rents rooms by the hour. My stomach churned as they disappeared into room 17. For 30 minutes, nothing happened. Then 3 more cars arrived. Men entered the same room, each carrying small bags or backpacks. An hour later, they began leaving one by one. Each person who exited looked different than when they entered, some jittery, some sluggish, all changed somehow. At 11:15 p.m., only Shonda and the tattooed man remained. When they finally emerged, he handed her a thick envelope. She counted the contents right there under the parking lot light, then slipped it into her purse. They kissed, not with passion, but with the casual familiarity of business partners. Then she returned to her car while he drove away in the opposite direction. I barely had time to duck down as she drove past my hiding spot. The truth hit me like a physical blow. My daughter wasn't working night shifts at any hospital. She was selling drugs, using that motel room as a distribution point. And the man with the tattoos? This must be Kendrick from the phone call. I felt the bile rise in my throat. Somehow I managed to drive home, park in my usual spot, and thank Gloria for watching Malik. I told her everything was fine at the church meeting. just a scheduling issue for the bake sale. But nothing was fine. Nothing would ever be fine again. If you're following my story and understand the devastation of discovering someone you love is living a dangerous lie, put heartbroken in the comments. Your support gives me strength to continue sharing this painful truth. After Gloria left, I locked myself in the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left but dry heaves. I sobbed silently into a towel, not wanting to wake Malik. How had my sweet little girl become this person? Where had I gone wrong? Was it when her father left? When I worked those long hours? When I was too tired to notice the first small lies that grew into larger deceptions? I splashed cold water on my face and looked in the mirror. The woman staring back had aged 10 years in a single night. Lord, give me strength, I whispered. Show me the way forward. The next morning, I went through the motions of making breakfast, packing Malik's lunch, seeing him off to school with a kiss and a smile that felt like it might crack my face, all while my mind raced with impossible choices. If I reported Shonda, she'd go to jail. Malik would enter foster care unless I could get emergency custody. But if I didn't report her, how long before Malik suffered, worse than hunger? How long before those drugs made their way into my home, around my grandson? When I returned from school drop-off, I noticed Shanla's bedroom door ajar. She normally slept until noon after her shifts. Curious, I peeked inside. The room was empty, dead unslept in. I checked the closet. Her clothes still hung there, but the shoebox of cash was gone. A chill ran through me. Had she noticed me following her? Was she running? I checked Malik's room next. His favorite teddy bear still sat on his pillow, but his school backpack was missing, along with the lunch I'd packed that morning. I called the school in a panic. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Harris. Malik isn't here today. His mother called first thing this morning to say he has a doctor's appointment." My knees buckled. I gripped the kitchen counter to stay upright. Shonda had taken Malik. She had removed him from school under false pretenses. As I hung up, I noticed something on the refrigerator I hadn't seen before. A note held by a magnet shaped like Alabama, a souvenir from my hometown. "Mama, taking Malik away from your meddling. Don't try to follow us. Don't call the police. You'll never see him again if you do." The room spun around me as I clutched that note, the threat against my grandson written in my daughter's handwriting. But there was something else at the bottom of the page that sent ice through my veins. An address hastily scrawled and partially erased, but still visible if you held it to the light.
The address led to a rundown motel on the edge of town. Not the one from last night, but similar. The Desert Palm, with its faded sign and crumbling stucco. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel, torn between calling the police and handling this myself. If Shonda saw police, would she run with Malik? Take him somewhere I could never find them? I chose to go alone, a decision that would haunt me for years. If you're watching this and thinking I made the wrong choice, you might be right. But sometimes when it's your child, even your adult child who's gone astray, you believe you can reach them, that the bond of blood will overcome everything else. Type mother's heart if you understand this impossible faith we hold on to, even when all evidence tells us it's misplaced. Room 26. The peeling numbers hung crooked on the door. I heard voices inside. Shonda's sharp tone, Malik's soft one, and a man's deep rumble that sent fear crawling up my spine. I knocked firmly, 3 hard raps. Silence fell inside the room. Footsteps approached, and the door cracked open. Shonda's face appeared, shock quickly replaced by anger.
"What are you doing here?" she hissed. "I came for Malik." She tried to close the door, but I pushed forward with strength I didn't know these old bones still possessed. The door flew open, revealing a dingy room with cigarette burns on the carpet. Malik sat on the bed, still wearing his school clothes, eyes wide open with fear and confusion. "Grandma?" His voice trembled. The tattooed man, Kendrick I presumed, stood by the bathroom door, watching me with cold calculation. "Get out, old woman. This ain't your business." "My grandson is absolutely my business," I replied, keeping my eyes fixed on Malik. "Come here, baby." Shonda stepped between us. "He's not going anywhere. I'm his mother. I decide what happens to him." "What's happening to him is neglect. You're denying him food, Shonda, using hunger to control him while you run drugs for this man." Her laugh was bitter, cutting. "Is that what you think? That I'm just some mindless drug mule? This is my operation, Mama. Mine. Kendrick works for me." The revelation struck me like a physical blow. My daughter wasn't just involved, she was in charge. The danger was far worse than I had imagined. "You're choosing this over your son's well-being?" I couldn't keep the disbelief in my voice. "I'm choosing financial freedom, something you never managed to achieve with your pathetic librarian salary and your coupons and your secondhand clothes. Always struggling, always one paycheck away from disaster." We had enough. We had each other. We had nothing. I watched you break your back for crumbs, while people with real money drove past our neighborhood without even slowing down. Now I have something that's mine, something that makes real money. At what cost? I gestured to Malik, who had pulled his knees to his chest, making himself small on the bed. "Your son goes hungry while you count cash?" "He's fine. Kids are resilient. And soon we'll have enough to leave this city, start over somewhere no one knows us." "You're not taking him anywhere," I said firmly. "Not when you're starving him to fund your drug business." Shonda's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Watch me." She turned to Kendrick. "Get rid of her." He moved toward me with purpose, but I stood my ground. "Touch me, and the police get this." I pulled out my phone, showing the photos I'd taken last night. The motel, the customers, the exchange of money. I sent copies to my email and to my friend at church. Anything happens to me, they go straight to Atlanta PD. Kendrick hesitated, looking to Shonda for direction. Her face twisted with fury. "You would send your own daughter to prison?" "To save my grandson? Yes." The words tore from my throat, painful but true. For a moment, something flickered in Shonda's eyes, recognition perhaps of how far things had gone. Then it hardened back to stone. "You've always chosen everyone else over me. Daddy left, and you chose work over being home. Now you're choosing Malik over your own daughter." "This isn't about choosing," I said quietly. "This is about protecting a child who can't protect himself." "Get out," she said, voice deadly calm. "Get out and forget what you think you know. Forget about Malik, or I swear to God, Mama, you'll regret it." "I'm not leaving without him." Her laugh was hollow, empty of anything resembling the little girl I'd raised. "Yes, you are." She pulled something from her purse, a small handgun that caught the dim light. "Now." My breath caught. My own child pointing a weapon at me. Would you believe me if I said time stopped in that moment? That I saw every version of Shonda flash before my eyes? The newborn in my arms, the kindergartner with missing front teeth, the teenager with dreams bigger than our neighborhood. And now this woman with cold eyes and a gun in her hand? "Malik," I said calmly, never taking my eyes off Shonda. "Don't you move," Shonda snapped at him. But Malik was already sliding off the bed, inching toward me, drawn by the promise of safety and perhaps a full plate of food without conditions attached. Shonda saw him moving and swung the gun toward him. I said, "Don't move." I lunged forward without thinking, putting my body between the gun and my grandson. "Shonda, stop! He's your child!" Something flashed across her face. Horror, recognition, I couldn't tell, but her hand wavered. In that moment of hesitation, Kendrick moved surprisingly fast, grabbing her wrist. "Not the kid," he growled. "That's a line we don't cross." Even a drug dealer had limits, it seemed. The distraction was all we needed. I grabbed Malik's hand and pulled him toward the door. Shonda screams behind us, but Kendrick held her back, arguing about heat and murder charges. We ran to my car, Malik's little legs pumping as fast as they could go. I peeled out of the parking lot, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. "Put your head down, baby," I told him as we drove, just in case. If you're following this story, take a moment to appreciate the child nearest to you right now. The safety we take for granted can vanish in an instant. Comment "grateful" if you're holding your loved ones a little closer after hearing this. When we arrived home, I locked every door and window. I called Pastor Thomas, who came immediately with 2 deacons from church. Strong men who could stand guard while I figured out what to do next. "Should we call the police?" the pastor asked quietly while Malik colored at the kitchen table, trying to pretend everything was normal. "Not yet," I said. "I need proof, real proof that will stand up in court." While the men kept watch, I searched the house for evidence of Shonda's neglect. What I found in the kitchen made my blood run cold. A padlock and chain were hidden under the sink, along with a key taped to the bottom of the trash can. "Malik?" I called gently. "Can you come here a minute, baby?" He approached cautiously, eyes darting to the padlock in my hand. His little body tensed immediately. "Am I in trouble?" "No, sweetheart. Never. I just need to know, what is this for?" His eyes welled with tears. "Mama puts it on the refrigerator when she leaves, and on the pantry, too. She said it's to help me learn self-control." Pastor Thomas made a sound like he'd been punched in the stomach. "How often does she use this?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Most days. Sometimes she forgets and I can eat. But if she remembers, she locks everything up. She says food costs money and money doesn't grow on trees." "What do you do when you get hungry?" He looked down at his shoes. "I drink water. Or sometimes I find crackers at school and save them. But Joey caught me taking extra from the cafeteria last week, and the lunch lady watched me after that." My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. While I'd been sleeping soundly in my bedroom, my grandson had been going hungry just down the hall, locked away from food in my own home. "When did this start, Malik?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "When we moved in with you. Before that, there wasn't much food at our apartment anyway, so she didn't need a lock." I pulled him into my arms, holding him tight as tears streamed down my face. "I'm so sorry, baby. I didn't know. I should have known." Have you ever realized too late that something terrible was happening right under your nose? That guilt can eat you alive if you let it. Type "forgiveness" in the comments if you believe we must forgive ourselves for not seeing what wasn't shown to us. I took photos of the lock, the chain, the key hiding place. Then I asked Malik to show me his hiding spots, the places where he'd stashed food when he could get it. Under his mattress, behind books on his shelf, inside a hollowed-out stuffed animal. Each discovery was another nail in the coffin of my denial. "Mrs. Harris," Pastor Thomas said gently, "this is criminal neglect. We need to call the authorities."
I nodded slowly, the decision crystallizing in my mind. I know, but first, I need to document everything, and I need your wife to take Malik for a medical exam, have his weight and condition professionally recorded. As we made these arrangements, my phone rang. Shonda's name flashed on the screen. I answered, putting it on speaker so the pastor could witness whatever she said. "Where's my son?" Her voice was ice cold. "Safe, away from you." "You've crossed a line, Mama. I'm coming for what's mine." "Shonda, please, get help. We can work this through." "I'm coming home, and when I get there, you'd better have Malik ready to leave with me, or I'll burn that house to the ground with both of you in it." The line went dead. Pastor Thomas was already dialing 911 when we heard a car screech into the driveway.
"Get Malik to the bathroom," I whispered urgently to Pastor Thomas's wife. "Lock the door." As they hurried away, one of the deacons peered through the curtains. "It's not just your daughter, Mrs. Harris. There's a man with her." Kendrick. My heart raced as the front door rattled violently. "Police are on their way," Pastor Thomas said, phone still in hand. 3 minutes out. Those 3 minutes stretched like hours as Shonda pounded on the door, screaming for Malik. When she couldn't get in the front, we heard glass shattering from the kitchen. She was breaking in through the back. The deacons moved to intercept her, but I raised my hand to stop them. "No one gets hurt today. Let the police handle this." I want to pause here and ask, have you ever had to make the heartbreaking decision to have someone you love arrested? Someone whose first steps you witnessed, whose tears you dried through childhood? Drop a heartbroken emoji in the comments if you understand this particular kind of pain. Blue lights flashed through the windows just as Shonda burst into the living room, Kendrick close behind her. She froze at the sight of Pastor Thomas and the deacons. "Where is he?" she demanded, eyes wild, searching the room. "Malik, come to Mama right now." The sound of sirens grew louder. Kendrick grabbed Shonda's arm. "We need to go, now." She yanked away from him. "Not without my son." That's when the police knocked, announcing their presence. Kendrick bolted toward the back door, but officers were already coming in that way too. There was nowhere to run. What followed was chaos. Officers securing the scene, separating everyone, taking statements. Shonda screamed accusations at me, calling me a kidnapper, a liar, an interfering old woman who couldn't mind her business. The officers found the gun in her purse. They found drugs in Kendrick's pocket. And when I showed them the padlock, the chain, and Malik's hiding places for food, their professional demeanor cracked, revealing the humans beneath the badges. "Ma'am, how long has this been going on?" a female officer asked me quietly. "Too long," I answered, shame washing over me. I should have seen it sooner. She squeezed my arm gently. "Family is complicated. You're doing the right thing now." When they brought Shonda out in handcuffs, our eyes met. In that moment, I saw something beneath her rage, a flicker of the little girl who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms. But it vanished quickly, replaced by cold hatred. "You're dead to me," she spat as they led her to the police car. Those words cut deeper than any knife could reach. Have you ever had someone you love with your whole heart tell you they hate you? Tell me in the comments, how did you find the strength to keep going? The weeks that followed were a blur of social workers, statements, and court appearances. Malik stayed with me under emergency custody while the investigation proceeded. A doctor confirmed he was 15 pounds underweight for his age and height. His teacher provided documentation of his food hoarding behavior at school. And my evidence, the journal, the photos, the recordings of threats, painted a clear picture of neglect and endangerment. Shonda didn't make things easier for herself. She refused legal counsel, ranted during hearings, and threatened me in front of the judge. The prosecution added drug trafficking charges when they found evidence on her phone linking her to distribution throughout the east side of Atlanta. Through it all, I prayed for her soul, for the child she once was, for the mother she failed to become. 63 days after that terrible night, we sat in a courtroom for the final custody hearing. Malik held my hand, wearing the new clothes we'd bought together, clothes that actually fit his growing frame. He'd gained 9 pounds since coming fully into my care. 9 pounds of proper meals, of never having to ask permission to eat, or knowing food would be there tomorrow too. The judge, an older woman with kind eyes and a stern mouth, reviewed the case one last time. Miss Harris, the evidence of neglect is overwhelming. Your use of food deprivation as punishment, especially while using household funds for illegal activities, demonstrates profound unfitness as a parent. Shonda stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Furthermore, your threatening behavior and failure to show remorse concern me deeply. The judge shuffled her papers. This court finds in favor of the petitioner. Loretta Harris, full legal and physical custody of Malik Harris is awarded to his grandmother, effective immediately. Relief flooded through me. I squeezed Malik's hand, feeling him squeeze back. But the judge wasn't finished. However, she continued, I believe in family reunification when possible. Ms. Harris will be permitted supervised visitation after completing drug rehabilitation and parenting classes during her incarceration. My breath caught. Incarceration. My daughter was going to prison. The reality I'd been avoiding crashed down around me. The judge turned to me, her expression softening slightly. Mrs. Harris, I commend your courage in protecting your grandson, but I must ask, are you prepared for what comes next? Malik will need therapy to process this trauma, and your daughter, upon release, may seek to regain custody.
I hadn't considered that possibility, that this victory might be temporary. Yes, Your Honor, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm prepared for whatever comes. Malik deserves at least one adult in his life who won't fail him. As we left the courthouse, reporters called out questions. I shielded Malik's face and hurried to the car where Pastor Thomas waited to drive us home. That night marked the beginning of our new normal, just my grandson and me trying to rebuild what trauma had broken. For those following our journey, I want to know, have you witnessed a child's recovery from trauma? Have you seen how resilience can bloom from the most damaged soil? Comment Hope Grows if you believe healing is possible even after the deepest wounds. The first month was the hardest. Malik had nightmares, waking up crying, convinced he wasn't allowed to eat breakfast. Each morning, I gently remind him that food was always available, no permission needed, no punishment coming. I placed baskets of fruit and healthy snacks in every room of the house. Take whatever you want, whenever you want, I told him. At first, he'd look at me for confirmation before each apple or granola bar. Gradually, that hesitation faded. His therapist, Dr. Winters, helped us navigate the complicated emotions. She's grieving, she explained during one of our joint sessions. Not just the loss of his mother's presence, but the loss of what he thought was normal. It wasn't normal, I said, anger flaring. To him, it was. Children adapt to survive. Now he's learning a new normal, and that's disorienting, even if it's better. By the third month, physical changes became obvious. Malik's face rounded out, his clothes fit properly, he grew 1.5 inches. His teacher reported he no longer hoarded food at school, though he still occasionally checked his backpack to make sure his lunch was there, as if reassuring himself. Small victories accumulated like precious stones. The first time he served himself seconds without asking.
The night he slept through without nightmares. The day he laughed so hard, milk came out his nose, and instead of apologizing in terror, he just laughed harder. But shadows remained, particularly around the subject of Shonda. "Does Mama hate me?" he asked one evening as I tucked him in. "Is that why she didn't feed me?" How do you answer such a question? What words could possibly make sense of such cruelty to a 7-year-old? Your mama is sick," I said finally. "In her mind and in her heart. That sickness made her do things that weren't right. None of it was your fault." Will I see her again? Another impossible question. That's up to you when you're ready, and only if she gets help for her sickness. The court ordered that Shonda could write letters to Malik from prison, which I would read first. For 3 months, nothing came. I was almost relieved. What could she possibly say that wouldn't cause more harm? Then, 6 months after her sentencing, an envelope arrived with the prison postmark. I want to pause here and ask, would you have opened that letter? Would you have wanted to know what was inside? Or would you have protected yourself and your loved one from potential new pain? The hardest choices are rarely clear-cut. Drop a comment with open or protect to tell me what you would have done. I sat at the kitchen table for nearly an hour, that unopened letter burning a hole in my hands. Finally, I carefully opened it, prepared to shield Malik from more hurt. What I read changed everything I thought I knew about my daughter. "Dear Mama and Malik, I don't deserve forgiveness, so I won't ask for it. What I did was unforgivable. The program here is helping me see how damaged I am, how I damaged my son. The therapist says I should make amends, but how do you make amends for starving your child, for threatening your mother? There aren't enough apologies in the world. All I can say is I'm trying to get better. Not for me, for Malik, so that someday, maybe years from now, he might have a mother who doesn't hurt him. Mama, thank you for saving him from me. Shonda." Tears streamed down my face. Was this genuine remorse or another manipulation? After a lifetime of Shonda's deceptions, how could I possibly know the truth? The next day, a second letter arrived, this one from Shonda's prison counselor. I opened the counselor's letter with trembling hands. "Mrs. Harris, I'm writing to confirm your daughter has been actively participating in our rehabilitation program. Her remorse appears genuine according to our assessment team. She's working through significant trauma of her own, things she experienced as a teenager that she never shared with you. This doesn't excuse her actions, but might help explain them. She's asked if you would consider bringing Malik for a supervised visit. The decision, of course, is entirely yours." That letter sat on my nightstand for 2 weeks while I prayed for guidance. How could I risk exposing Malik to more pain? But how could I deny him his mother if she was truly changing? For those who've stayed with me through this story, I wonder, can someone who's done something truly terrible ever earn back trust? Is redemption possible for everyone? Comment "second chance" or "too risky" to share your thoughts on this impossible dilemma. A year passed. Malik thrived under consistent care. I enrolled him in a good school where nobody knew our history. We attended therapy together, learning how to talk about the hard things. The shadows in his eyes gradually faded, replaced by the sparkle that should be in every child's gaze.
After much prayer and consultation with Malik's therapist, we visited Shonda in prison. Just once, for 30 minutes. She looked different, thinner, humbler, her eyes clear of that wild hatred I'd seen at the courthouse. She didn't try to touch Malik or make promises about the future. She simply apologized, directly and specifically, for the harm she had caused. On the drive home, Malik was quiet for a long time. "You okay, baby?" I asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. "I think Mama's really sorry," he said finally. "I think so too. But I still don't want to live with her again." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "That won't happen unless you wanted to, and not for a very long time." 2 years after that terrible night when Malik asked if he was allowed to have dinner, we sat at our kitchen table celebrating his 9th birthday. Friends from school had come and gone, leaving a mess of wrapping paper and cake crumbs in their wake. Now, it was just the two of us, comfortable in the quiet. "Grandma, remember when I used to ask permission to eat?" My heart squeezed. "Yes, baby, I remember." "I thought that was normal." He picked at a piece of cake. "I didn't know other kids didn't have to do that." "What do you know now?" I asked gently. His eyes met mine, clear and certain. "I know food is just food. It's not a reward or a punishment. It's just what people need to live." Tears welled in my eyes at the simple wisdom of this child who'd endured so much. "That's exactly right." He pushed his plate away, belly full, face content. The contrast to that frightened, hungry boy from 2 years ago couldn't have been more stark. "And I know something else. I know you saved me." I reached across the table and took his hand, no longer bony, but strong and growing. "We saved each other, baby. We saved each other." As I finish sharing our story, I want to leave you with this truth. Sometimes love means making the hardest choice of all. Sometimes protection looks like standing against your own child to save your grandchild. And sometimes healing begins with a simple question: "Am I allowed to have dinner?" that forces us to see what we've been blind to. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Every story is like a candle that can light the way for someone else trapped in darkness. Comment "I hear you" if you've been moved by Malik's journey from hunger to healing. And if you're watching this and recognize signs of food restriction or neglect in a child you know, a little one who's always hungry, who hoards food, who asks permission for basic needs, please don't look away like I almost did. God places us in each other's lives for a reason. Sometimes the most important words we'll ever say are the hardest. "This isn't right, and I won't be silent." Because no child should ever have to ask if they're allowed to have dinner.